we are live. Yeah, Joe Rogan style.
Awesome.
Okay, yeah, welcome to our Scratch session. Today we have, someone really special. A friend of mine. We work together with Saber Music Festival, so he's a jack of all trades. Yeah, as you can see, Saber Music Festival. He's really involved into the whole visual DJing stuff. Also, technology-wise, he worked as a author for DJ Works. And yeah, we are really happy to welcome Ray, Mr. Arkaei, on our session. And maybe, you can give us some background about your craft, your reputation within the scene and stuff like that.
What
Welcome.
reputation? I have a reputation. That's amazing. I wasn't aware of that. So hi, for those who are not aware of my existence, which is like 99% of all turntablists everywhere, my name is Ray, and I push buttons and then things happen. And in my end, I've always been more interested in the technology as opposed to learning the manual skills. I have tremendous respect for people who just practice their cuts for years and years on end. But for me, it's just like, this technology exists. What else can I do with it? And it's always been about kind of going further. Like, how much can I really do on my own in terms of a performance? And all my nerdism has kind of exploded in a way where my manual skills have kind of diminished. Oh, cheers to someone's kid coughing in the background.
Yeah.
Aw.
You can do the sick.
Nightly.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's all good. It's like, and basically, I'm a nerd, like I think everybody else on the screen right now. I love experimenting and making things happen. I think each of us has their own approach between hacking hardware, building new hardware, making things work with other things. I don't know, in my case it's mostly visuals, and I like to do things like these. And it involves a little bit of coding, but I'm mostly just like a script kiddie. I take things that I've seen other people do and disassemble them and reassemble them into my thing. And other than that, I'm just really just a DJ.
Could you give us firsthand just a little overview about your equipment, your technology you're using? It looks like on a UFO, so it would be great for audience that everyone knows which type of software you're using for your performance, how everything merged together in the live showcase and stuff.
Okay, like that. I mean, I actually don't have everything working right now because, but I'm just gonna like this setup itself is just a regular DVS. So I have an Allen & Heath Zone 96. Sitting here, the Tractor Control D2s. Those have been my decks forever. And this is a Vestax PDX 3000 with Face sitting on top. And the reason I chose this particular mixer isn't just the fact that it has 6 channels and 2 sends, which is amazing. It's also the fact that it has dual USB. So this is actually connected to 2 computers. And one of them is running Tractor, which is my DVS of choice. And also this visualizer with the hands that's all running off of that laptop over there. And the other machine is where my VJ software, which is Resolute Marina version 7, runs. And all of that is currently tied into OBS for, in this case, it's a video call, but normally I use it for streaming. So over the course of the pandemic, I think most of us have kind of doubled down on the tech and started saying, hey, what else can we do since we can't play out? In my case, it was just like, hey, let's build a kick-ass streaming setup and, see if I can make audio-reactive visuals. So normally this stuff is responding to my voice, but typically everything about it is tied to the DJ set. So the rotation of these graphical elements is synchronized to the BPM. Literally everything in the setup is kind of slaved to Tractor. So I use Ableton Link between the 2 computers that run music and visuals to sort of tie everything together. And
awesome.
Thank you, sir. And then there's also Phase, which normally I use 2 of them. I have another set sitting somewhere here. Where is it? Somewhere below the VR stuff. Doesn't matter. But I use basically 2 Phase controllers stacked over each other. And this lets me do things like this. So I can actually use Face to control also generative visual elements and video scratch. And this is something that neither Tractor nor Serato can do on this level. So for the nerds watching this, basically what I did is I set it to spit out Miss Pinky timecode, and then I'm actually running Miss Pinky that's spitting out OSC strings, and they are talking to the video timeline of the videos that I have running in Resolume. And everything else is really just a huge pile of video layers, so I can do things like these, maybe show a dancing ninja. And normally all these things is every single animation, this ninja popping out and back in, everything happens in sync. So it's like 5 or 6 programs synchronized via Ableton Link between 2 computers. And then the third one is usually doing streaming and encoding. And what else? I mean, there's a whole bunch of effects that I'm doing. So think of this, if you're not used to visual software, think of it as a mixture of like Photoshop, Ableton Live, and After Effects, I guess. And this is all rolled into one, and it runs on a beastly graphics card and then spits out visuals. So this is normally stuff that I would do at events as well. Except at events, I don't have the benefit of having a huge green screen, so it's usually like a projection or an LED wall. Yeah. And the pushes, they usually have heart-shaped VU meters. So basically they will respond to audio and then display an RGB LED heart. But right now, since I'm not playing any music, they are in bypass. So it's kind of, I'm committing a grave sin by having 2 pushes and just using them for visuals. But for the streaming stuff, it was kind of a fun thing to do. But I do actually play on them as well. So it's like, don't kill me. That's it. So yeah.
The cool thing about that is everything runs on one MacBook Pro, right?
You know what? I've been joking about that, but I'm not sure if it wouldn't run on the newest MacBook Pro. But there are things that things that Windows is better at. Like, for example, just being able to send the visual from Resolume into OBS and then spit that out through a virtual webcam. Try doing that on macOS. You can't, because there are no virtual webcams. So you can use NDI, but that's gonna lag, etc., etc. So for the really, really nerdy shit, sorry, can I curse? The really nerdy stuff, PC turns out to be my platform of choice, but I'm not like a Mac hater of anything. It's just
that's only because you work so much with videos.
Yeah.
Other way around. But I have a question around your. So you mentioned Resolume. I'm not too familiar with it, but it's only video that you're using in there. So you're syncing the video clips and things that you have. Or are you also using shaders or some kind of other?
Not really. So this is a shader.
Right.
So this is an effect that's basically a duplicate of this layer where you can see me and all these other things. Sure. And there's another duplicated layer underneath, and that just has an effect on it.
Yep.
And everything, just the color changes of it. You can slave everything to BPM. And also if I crank up the audio response, hold on, I'm just going to disable everything else. You should be able to see the clouds kind of increase in intensity when I talk, and when I shut up, they're going to just quiet down. So it's all kind of like the turbulence of the smoke behind me is tied to the peak of the audio signal. But everything else, like this stuff, for example, this is a generative element. So this is really what happens here is just a gradient with a pile of effects on it. Sure. And it has a rotation parameter, and that's an OSC string that's coming from Miss Pinky. So that's one of these things that I figured like, hey, Resolume does generative graphics to a degree, so you can't really compare it with something like Touch Designer or Notch, but it does these things and it does them really well. So the I don't know, stuff like audio responsive, simple distortions, you can do that very easily. But of course, at some point, your graphics card is going to say, especially if you're capturing video and stuff. But really, the strength of Resolume is just being able to do these things very, very quickly. It has its own video codec, so it has a codec that's optimized just for decoding on the GPU. It's beautiful, so it hardly uses processor power. Most of the things that are happening right now are happening on the GPU, which is just sexy. And I'm also recording everything that we're doing right now. I'm recording it on OBS at the same time, and it's still going. So the video stuff is just like a part of it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn this down right now. I should.
Yeah, that's why I was asking about the shaders, because that's all GPU stuff, and videos generally quite it's heavy always. So if you can use shaders, it will generally enhance your performance, right? So you can do more cool things.
Exactly, but it's not like you can just go to Shader Toy and just copy paste something and put it in Resolume. That doesn't work. But Resolume does actually have.
Yeah.
They've developed something called Wire, which is like a node-based programming system. It's not as complex as say Max or something, but it's the beginning of something awesome where you can actually build your own effects in it. And that smoke is actually one of the first Wire effects that was released to the public. Now everybody that has Resolume Arena has Wire, I think. I'm not sure about the licensing model, to be honest, because I have a relationship with them, so I kind of get to play with these things.
Right.
But it's as somebody who has spent money on Resolume in the past, I can say that if you're doing anything with visuals, it's kind of your Ableton Live for visuals, because you can just connect everything, and then if you need to make a projection mapping across 4 LED walls or something, you can do that straight in Arena. And then there is the entry-level version is, I think, Resolume Avenue, which is basically Arena, but without, I'm not sure if Wire is included, but definitely the mapping stuff, you can only do that in Arena, and that's why I use it.
Yeah.
Because like if I get to play out once in a blue moon, there's usually more than one LED screen or projector involved. So, but yeah, who remembers? That was like 1.5 years ago last time.
It looks really cool, and at the same time, I'm also kind of wondering that why don't we see that more often? And the only reason I can think of is that it must be difficult to somehow get something going, because you're really technical, right? And you go into it. But what's like the normal bedroom DJ who's going to play at his high school, right? And they want to have some cool effects. How easy is it for them to sort of say, "Hey, I want to have some cool spectrum stuff and some effects like this"? That's tricky, probably.
It is. I mean, so to me, my usual response to this is it's all actually really easy once you get into it. But I keep, like, every person who's been doing a certain thing for a while, like you guys as well. If you're doing something for most of your adult life, then certain connections in your brain, like, oh, this does OSC, I can use it to do this. You just know these things, and you just immediately think, okay, I can hack this to do that, and you draw it in your mind. You don't even sketch it on paper. You already know it's going to work. And this kind of knowledge is something that you can only acquire through making thousands of mistakes. Just learning, adding stuff to your arsenal. And the other problem is, of course, that it's like when you take two people who use Ableton Live, right? They will never have the same workflow, because Ableton Live is a huge toolbox, and you have N+1 ways to achieve a desired result. And it's kind of the same with visuals. There are some pre-baked things that you can do, such as playing video loops. Everyone can do that, but if you're going to figure out, I don't know, how to key a 6-meter green wall and set up the lights, these are things you need to figure out on your own. There is no button that you can push that makes it work. And if you actually go to my tiny YouTube channel, I have some live stream VODs from like the very, very beginning of this setup, and compared to this, they're kind of a joke. So it's all like evolution, and you have to have a certain mindset of just even wanting to do that. And this is something that it's actually a question that I'd like to throw out to you guys, because I've been personally struggling to get people into it, because every time I have, like, I mean, of course, because of COVID, having friends in here is a rare thing, but every once in a while when it happens, usually even my nerdy DJ friends, like the guys who make insane 20-layer mappings on Machine for their Red Bull routines, they look at this and they check out. And my question would be to you guys, I mean, aside from Sample Music Festival, how can we get people to want to explore this? Because I can perfectly understand. It's like when I look at some Unreal Engine or Unity developers that are on this level, I look at that and say, I have no idea how they did that. So I understand the feeling, but at the same time, I want to learn this. And this wanting to learn something is, how do we instill that in people?
I think it's tricky, or maybe Nick.
Well, like initially when you were explaining your kind of position in the landscape, in that you like to understand how things work rather than the actual, the physical act of learning and practicing the skills to perform it, I think that is very admirable, and that's pretty similar to the way I see things as well. I like to sort of reverse engineer.
You're a badass on the turntables. Sorry. Like, don't sell yourself short. Like, come on.
Thank you.
You're kind of both these things, so.
Sure. Thank you. But yeah, like it's I've certainly got a passion for understanding how things work and how things can integrate together. And if a certain piece of software doesn't offer a certain functionality, we find out ways to get it to talk to something else, or to utilize things like OSC or advanced MIDI or all these different things. So I think we need to champion more nerdiness amongst the community, and it's sort of difficult to see how we could foster it. Like, DJ Tech Tools certainly tried to advance people's knowledge with how to make advanced mappings with Traktor, and even set up an entire platform for sharing mappings and things like that. However, I noticed that the discussions for a lot of the mappings, or the questions, would keep on coming up. How do I do this? How do I achieve this? And it was just the knowledge doesn't seem to be coming sort of universal across all the users. And it's a question as to whether or not does the platform itself offer enough knowledge to be able to learn it yourself, or is it just that there is not enough explicit kind of information out there?
Well, I mean, in my experience, the industry has kind of neglected that part a little bit. Especially with things like Traktor mappings that have so many people just coming to me, hey Ray, how do I do this in Traktor? What's a modifier? And it's like, it's not like this stuff isn't documented, but there's hardly anyone in the industry just genuinely making educational content.
Exactly.
And DJ Tech Tools, of course DJ works in DJ Tech Tools, different things, but I always liked the DJ Works community for being very inquisitive. And on DJ Tech Tools, it's much bigger community, like really many people in it. Of course, you know this. But what I would see people do is mostly they just grab a mapping, and just the question in the forum is like, I can't get the mapping to work. It's like, because it's a really advanced thing, and you need to understand how mappings work before you know. But it's like, it falls on deaf ears because we're kind of stuck in this YouTube instant gratification culture where you can get everything right now.
Exactly.
Like, what's the shortcut to this? I don't want to put in any work.
But I think you're asking maybe the wrong question. So you're kind of asking that how can we get other turntablists or DJs to kind of adopt this kind of tools? But I think that's not possible. I mean, you see a lot of turntablists, they have like the most expensive gear, S11, touchscreen on it, all this stuff. They don't even know how to hook up another mixer to their output so that the crossfader will work. So I mean, so I think it's like you said, it falls on deaf ears. I think there's truth to it, and exactly the word also I was going to say, the instant gratification. That's two words. That's definitely a thing. So I think how to bring this to the masses, and we've already been thinking about this earlier. We have some stuff in the pipeline for this. If you bring out some kind of tool or an application or whatever it is that is simple to use, which offers instant gratification, couple of clicks really, no programming, no difficult routing, then people can use it. But if you have something like Touch Designer or Resolume or even Ableton, I mean, you need to be really passionate about what you're trying to do in order to really learn that. And that's not something you can just say that we can make it easier, even with content. I think that's something that's really difficult to do.
It's funny because Darren from Isotonics, he said the same, regarding all the VSTs and all its expertise and how much time you have to spend to dig in to find all the different possibilities. He says, actually, you just have to create something where you find 3 knobs, 1, 2, 3, and then you get a certain effect, and that's it. And that's it, And this is what the user expects today, a simple solution.
But it's also the choice paralysis, right? So if you don't give people choices, it's easier for them to go with something. If you have like 1,000 options, they don't know what to choose, and in the end they will get something crappy, and then they will not use it.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of maybe because definitely and that's also why I asked the questions earlier. We have been looking into shaders and how can you be creative. So of course, yes, making music, whether it's with a controller or being a DJ, and then how do you add visuals there? How you can make this simple, and where sort of the transition between that, and how do you enable that? I think, like you said, it's relatively easy to load up a video, put it on a loop, and that's also generally my impression from VJing. If somebody would ask me, what does a VJ do? Well, they have some loops and some crazy effects. But the average bedroom guy who has who just bought the Rain 1 controller because it's all in one thing, it's easy to use, it's quick, and they want to have some visuals. Where do they go? I don't think there is anything on the market today which actually does that.
Well, there are people who try. I think didn't Mixed Vibes do? They made Remix Live. I was kind of partially involved in the promo phase of the initial release, but they did something similar for video, which I think might get people into it. But the issue with these things is like, how do you integrate it in a bigger setup? And at some point you have to learn how to scale, and these things have limits. It all goes like this, the curve, there is a peak, you can't go beyond that without making a huge step in terms of learning. It's interesting
you say that, because Touch Designer, for instance, we looked into that also, and from what I understood from that's really elaborate packets for software, and you can really make kind of when you watch the Olympics and you see all of these kind of visuals on the ground and on the ceilings everywhere and stuff, that kind of stuff you can do pretty much with Touch Designer. But that's between that and having some kind of oscilloscope behind you on a green screen at home on your live stream, and between that there's a huge gap in between that where somehow it feels like there's nothing there. There might be a market for that.
Well, I'm not sure about that, because the problem with these things is like, for example, just on a technical level, I would be capable of maybe designing something of this magnitude, but the issue with that is just the price.
Good.
A show like this will run on a media server that starts at $80,000. Starts. And ideally, if you have something bigger, you have to have several, and if you're professional, you have a backup as well. And then all of a sudden, this is why shows like, I don't know, the CES thing costs what they cost. It's because the stuff is so ridiculously expensive. Like, we saw something cool when we were in Dubai, a system that allows basically super precise infrared tracking of people on a stage. We're like really, really precise. But to even start playing with that, I have to dish out $30,000. I'm not going to do that. And there's a gap that you unfortunately can't bridge without spending money. Like, for example, like I've been dabbling in VR, and I want to do AR as well, because it's this wildly interesting stuff. But if you want to say play with a HoloLens, $3,500.
Right.
A HoloLens, like an AR device from Microsoft.
Sure. Yeah.
That price, like, I mean, and I don't. This is just for me to nerd out and see if I can build something. I don't have a business case or anything. I really just want to figure stuff out. So I'm just wondering why there isn't a sort of fund to kind of, it's like a startup, but for art, where you would apply and get a grant. Epic does something like this. If you have something cool that you build in Unreal Engine and you pitch it, you can win a huge grant just to build this thing. But there aren't enough things like that happening in the industry, and that's why you get every 2 years you get the next slate of like 4-channel DJ controllers that all do the same thing.
Sure. I mean, I think on the HoloLens, I thought also when it came out, or the first kind of screenshot, it looked really cool, but it was too expensive. And I think in the end, Microsoft went with the industry approach, so it's more for companies, not for individuals. But now, of course, with Facebook, having the metaverse, and they're having kind of these Oculus glasses, maybe it becomes more affordable, but then still, applying that to something which is useful in your creative process, that's going to take a long time still.
Man. You're pushing me into a Facebook metaverse Oculus rant. Are you sure you want to do that? So the thing with that, here's the thing. Facebook has the resources to make standalone VR equipment very affordable.
Sure,
in that regard, their role is very important, because they contribute to this technology becoming something ubiquitous that everybody can, in theory, get. But it's also Facebook. No matter how they rebrand it, if they can call it, pink unicorns in the sky, it's still going to be Facebook. Even if you call it Meta, it's still data hoarding. Your account is still tied to this massive company that's Instagram, WhatsApp, and all these things where we will be publishing our content. So it's kind of, it's a double-edged sword.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. Right. I mean, I understand that. There's a trade-off there for sure.
And it's also, if you want to interface with something, it's up to them to give you the API to do it. If they don't provide the API, what are you going to do? You can go and build your own headset. Good luck with that. It's like Pico 3 or something. These things are great. They're direct competitors to Meta, but they're going to get drowned out because Facebook is that huge. I mean, heck, it's incredibly frustrating because whatever we do in the VR space, there's something new that I'm trying called Patch XR. It's basically a node-based patching environment in VR that combines sound generation, MIDI OSC, and visuals. Well, not MIDI. I don't think they're doing MIDI, but they do OSC for sure. And this stuff, if you want to get people to use it, you're gonna have to release it on Oculus. If you release it on Oculus, you have a performance ceiling because it's a standalone device. But you want people to use it, so it's like, I'm sitting here just like, why can't we progress as the freaking species? Because of money, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose there's a bit of a dilemma with whether or not companies will decide to maintain certain functionality. Like once upon a time, Traktor handled OSC natively, and now it doesn't any longer. Or Serato Video handled an environment called Quartz Composer, which was a kind of a node-based patching environment for doing visuals on Mac OS X. But once you upgraded to High Sierra, it was no longer supported. So you had to kind of stay back in older versions to be able to maintain and use functionality that was useful but wasn't so widely adopted that they decided to let's not continue support for this.
Yeah.
I wonder kind of because I remember that as well, and I always wondered why Traktor didn't have video support, because there's videos for sure from Serato Video where somebody's scratching and you see the video also glitching at the same time, and I thought at the time it was really cool. And I mean, maybe back in the day, performance issues, and I get it, right? Even let's say a decade ago, sound cards weren't as good yet. If you had a little bit of a shitty PC, then maybe the performance was a little bit behind with your mixing and your kind of audio quality. But nowadays, I mean, the kind of stuff that we run this DVS software on, I mean, it should be able to handle also video in real time. I mean, maybe not 4K, but then do 1080p and then have the audio at the same time. I mean, that should be possible. So I think it's just something that they don't want to do, or they don't want to put the resources into it or the money, because maybe it's not a good enough kind of feature that they will get more customers and it will just cost them money and not benefit anything. That's really the only thing I can think of.
Well, yeah, but there are also other reasons. I mean, in case of Traktor, there are things that I know that I can't talk about, unfortunately. But just generally talking about video, there is the issue of a platform. So in my day job, I develop laptops for DJs, VJs, producers, etc. These are Windows machines. And over the course of that work, I test every DVS. And one of the things that I test, because I get tons of requests for it, how will it handle video? How will it handle Serato Video? And if you compare, for example, the performance of Serato Video on a low-end MacBook versus on a low-end PC, it's the MacBook is going to perform awesomely, because they know that 90% of their user base is on Mac, so they optimize for it. Meanwhile, the exact same video file is going to play terribly on a PC because the code is terrible. And then you think, is it the PC that's terrible? Not really, because then you take Rekordbox and then you take Virtual DJ and you load the video in there, and it performs really very well, because the developers of Virtual DJ know that most of their user base is on PC.
Yeah.
So it's not that the hardware can do it, but I can totally understand a developer who says, I'm going to focus on this platform, and just deliver good performance on that because that's where most of my user base is. I hate it, but I understand it.
But yeah, I a little bit disagree there because nowadays,
Okay.
I mean, my phone can play video better than some PCs, you know. So you have kind of a super PC in your pocket. So I think it's some kind of unwillingness, or that they don't want to put in the time and the resource to actually optimize it.
It's a lot of struggle, I think, also in terms of customer service, you know. Maybe this is the point. I mean, we have the same experience with Scratch, you know. Bob, you can.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about that, by the way, because I don't have that app yet, and I want it. But here's the thing, just on that video stuff. So we already have the issue that in some cases, when a new major version of, say, Tractor gets released, and all of a sudden, people can't play their 128 kilobyte MP3s anymore,
right?
Because I don't know, something got commented out, whatever, it breaks. We're dealing in DJ software. We're dealing with what? MP3, whatever other FLAC, WAV, all the other Apple lossless, whichever format, whichever container the software is supposed to support. Now in video, oh my God, like that's the 3D complexity version of that, because you have codecs, you have resolutions, frame rates, bit rates, all these things that I think it's ridiculously hard to just write an engine that will handle all that. Like Resolute does that amazingly, but I don't think that it's within the. I mean, Virtual DJ is a huge exception because that software kind of runs and supports everything. The coders are wizards, but they sacrifice the sacrifice of that is, of course, the terrible UX of the software, but it's capable of doing that. But I don't think that for a company like Native Instruments, it's just a priority to do video. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's probably that the whole Tractor is not their priority. So I mean, of course, we know also that turntablism and DJ software.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
I mean, it's a niche in a niche, you know. So I think that's probably also it. I mean, I have no idea what their budgets are or kind of what they're focusing on, right? So I know software development. So obviously, if you know, hey, if we're going to do this or we're going to do that, which thing will we get more users or get more new users or retain our users? You're going to do the one that will do that. And if it's not video, then it's not video. So, but in any case, I think it's interesting because, like you mentioned, these other software do actually do it, but then they have some other drawbacks. So it's maybe also a choice that where can you, what can you do to make it work? I mean, it's difficult for sure. I mean, it's with any software. What kind of features are you going to add? But it would be just so cool if Tractor also would do video. I mean, I'm also just a Tractor user.
Yeah, I'm right with you there. Like, I'm friends with the developers. I've been gnawing their ears off about that for quite some time. So believe me, I'm. I wish it did that. But then there's also just in terms of practicality, who really uses video? You're going to have the DJ City Club people that maybe have a residency, have access to a projector. That's number one. Number two, maybe wedding DJs. Number three, recent crop of DJs who stream. But in terms of just like professional touring DJs, they don't do their own video. They usually, if you play a big festival, unless you're me and you're crazy and you travel with like a truckload of equipment, you have people at the FOH. You have a crew that makes visuals for the whole event, and you don't have anything to do with that. So the practicality of it. I mean, if I rolled up, say I roll up to Ultra and I say, hey, I want to take over your projection, they're going to look at me. Even if I were famous, they're going to be like, you want to what? It's not that easy, you know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but that plays to the argument of probably like how many people will really use it and how much effort can we put into it. That might be very well the reason. Still a shame that it doesn't have it, you know?
Absolutely. Dude, it's a shame that it doesn't have OSC either. I mean, all this information that it's in that software that I just want to get out and can't. It's just, you know.
But
and hardware is becoming more powerful now as well. Like things you're able to achieve now, even from a laptop, was probably not achievable, 5 years ago. The amount of stuff that you can do, and even the capabilities of graphics cards and all of that.
Insane. It's insane. It was like that. I think that like this stuff, the 3D hands in terms of just rendering that and just using them as controllers. I remember doing that with the very first Leap Motion in like 2013 or 14.
I've still got one behind me.
Right. These are amazing, but it's like the power has been there for a long time, but we tend to kind of underestimate that the average person, especially after COVID, they just don't have the budget to just buy a laptop that's strong enough. And I can't really blame them because, again, there is this technology gap that's tied to price of the equipment, which is very, very unfortunate. Because so many talented people out there. Yeah, scarcity as well. I mean, right now, try getting a 3090 or something, which I really, really want. But right now, the price, I can just get a new laptop for a single graphics card. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And I work for a company. Again, I work for a company that sells these, so I get better prices already, and it's still crazy.
Sure.
You know, it's not a good environment. But can we talk about Scratch, because I have so many questions.
Yeah, sure.
So, because I know that it started with the visualizer that you built, Nick, that thing that we saw at Sample Music Festival. What are the next steps for that? Because my thing is, when I look at the app, I see a truckload of data that I can teach, I don't know, ML algorithms with. Say I get people that are 20 times better than I will ever be at cutting.
Sure.
And I collect, if they are willing to, I collect their data and train an algorithm, and then say have AI generated scratches that I can never ever perform. This stuff, have you guys been looking into that? Training algorithms on high level cuts?
Yeah, just some words about, the thing is with Scratch, actually our idea was to come up with this application as kind of like a buzzer, just a giveaway for the community to create this momentum for our brand. Because when you really break it down for what it is at the moment, I mean, we make a lot of noise with that, but at the end, still scratching is also just a niche, just a couple of crazy guys who are doing some stuff and blah, 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 blah. Our aim is really that we expand our target group in terms of music production and stuff like that. That's really our goal. But data-wise, we had so many brainstormings about that topic. So
I hope I didn't break something, just drop something that you guys were gonna mention in like a couple of weeks. That I'm sorry.
I can maybe elaborate a little bit also. And definitely, we all saw the app that Nick made 2 years ago, or even before that. But then sort of Sample Music Festival, everybody was playing with it, and the reaction was great, right? So
people were standing around, it's like, holy shit, what is that?
Yeah, exactly.
I remember that. It was amazing.
And definitely, using data from turntables is a cool idea, right? So we were thinking, what could we do with that? So first of all, let's make something and code it in C++, so it's an actual app and it will work. But then around that, we've been already talking together with the three of us around all kinds of other, creative software or even hardware as well. So that's kind of where Scratch came from, because we realized we need to have some kind of place where we can put all this IPR, right, and that we run with. We have some kind of branding and all that kind of stuff. So that was really the start of it. I think we started really kind of going into this end of last year, beginning of this year, making some prototypes and doing all this kind of stuff. And at some point, it kind of came up, I guess, that Nick had this kind of Scratch visualization app, and then we were like, how can we maybe utilize that? Because we know a lot of DJs. They don't know us yet, or they don't know the company. And then actually how it happened, more by chance, that I coded the app in C++, and we had something which was working. And we let Richie actually test it. And then before we knew it, he said, like, fine, I'll test it out and stuff. And he was really excited about it. And then before we knew it, it was on Instagram. And then everybody was asking us, where can we get this stuff?
I saw that video.
And then we didn't even have a website yet. We had already the plan, like when will we have it up, but we all need to accelerate all that stuff a little bit. But now we also realized that after people were kind of really interested, then there's kind of the attention has been kind of a little bit going down from there. So definitely it's more of a gimmick almost, like how does it look like? And after that, what do you then do with it? Which takes me to the point of what you mentioned about the data. And also what we talked about with visuals, So we want to make apps and even hardware, but just in general, the things that people can use to be creative with music, but also with visuals and any kind of transcendence of that. So if you make music, what does it look like? Or, if you think about there's some theory around music with colors as well, and how kids, for instance, nowadays learn music. Well, they learn the piano, but they don't just push buttons on some kind of controller, because that's difficult, or a keyboard. But how can you make that easier? How can you make it more accessible, that people touch something and it does something visually or with sound that sort of it sounds good, it looks good, and it's cool to play with. That's kind of the underlying thoughts that we have for our apps. So the Scratch Visualizer happens to be one sort of element in that, but it's only really for turntablists. And if you then go a little bit further, that how would that work for DJs who do transitions, and how can you teach them with that? We're looking into that kind of realm. So how can we make this bigger? But it's not the only area where we're looking. But obviously, the data is an interesting aspect. What else can you do with it? And that kind of touches the part of the graphics, right? So if you have a record and a crossfader, and you have these motions and things, you can do things with it in theory. So you're already doing that also with Phase, for instance. So, but we would be able to do that within the app and make it maybe a little bit more accessible, a little bit simpler.
That's the thing. Exactly. Because once you are basically building the framework for all the stuff that nerds like me do and making it accessible, which is something I love. It's like I'm completely opposed to the idea of keeping secrets. I love telling people about it, but in my case, it's like I said, it's the problem that they usually check out after I explain how I did this. If I tell them, okay, this is Miss Pinky, it's running a looped empty audio file, and that's tied to an OSC float that just loops. What is the float? It's a problem. But when you guys give it, But when you guys hand out a tool, and I can, or not just me, but other people like me can work with you to just do that thing with the 3 knobs. It's like, here, this is how you can scratch a filter. And then you have digital syntablism, which is like a cross of mixed datablism and then syntablism, and it merges into one. I've been doing experiments of my own, but because I suck at scratching, there are no videos of it yet. But it's like you can automate so much that the automation goes so deep that when you perform the things, it goes back to actually being the manual performer of these things. Like I did recently for one of for the DJ laptop that I released, I made a routine where I basically automated fader cuts, and it's dead simple stuff. Really is. But people were the most frequent comment under that video was like, "How did you do that?" It's like, I said it in the video, like literally. I tell them like, I'm doing this. This is how it works.
Right.
And so if we can manage to take that one extra step where they get something simple that just works, it comes with mapping files for everything, I think we can genuinely. Oh God, I hate that word game changer, but we can genuinely change the game with things like these if people come together and actually work on it.
Yeah. And that's another thing that we're pretty excited about as well, like being able to interact with perhaps games via like turntables and DJ equipment. So
I've been thinking all this time. Do you guys know Beat Saber? It's probably the most popular.
Of course.
Yeah. So imagine Beat Saber but generative tied to a DJ set. It's like with like difficulty levels, and oh my God, like the tech is all there. That's the thing. Like all you need is an algorithm that translates certain patterns into certain block shapes for the game, and it can happen live. It can be fed with a live feed. It's insane. Just the thing that the problem with that is, as always, there's time and money. Like we all know what we want to do, but how do we? Like I've made years ago the decision that I'm going to do something completely else for a living, just so I can do this without it being tied to my income. But the reverse of that is, of course, that I don't have enough time to do it properly. It's just like
that's also. I mean, we're working on pretty nerdy stuff generally, and we have ideas, but we also always think a little bit about that. Would it actually work as a product, right? So, and that's also something we're learning. So we made a kind of Ableton plugin that we are selling on Isotonic. We have the Scratch visualizer as an own software that we are selling through our Patreons. But like where do you get money from, right? So that's generally also something you need to keep in mind. I mean, at least for us, because that's kind of where we want to grow, but also make cool things. And then so one of the things actually we already talked about like a long time ago, more than a year ago, was kind of this hardware controller. Which I don't want to say too much about it, but basically, if you look into the hardware space, we have an advanced prototype. Maybe you've seen it. So Alex has some videos around it as well. But
I see. This is the problem where I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
It's fine. So we've also teased this a little bit in our introduction videos and stuff. But if you look into hardware, and then as sort of a startup company saying that, hey, we want to bring out something which we think is revolutionary. It doesn't exist at least, and it's affordable, and it's cool to play with. I mean, it's so difficult to kind of get kind of a supply chain up and running with all the regulations and all that kind of stuff. So we're not even thinking about how can you manage the cost. But so we're trying to figure that out as well. But I think that's something that I wish that would be a little bit easier, because software, I mean, we've already made a plugin, we've made a software application. That's something that you can learn, and you don't need to be a full-time developer to code a little bit. I mean, you have the internet, you can find stuff, and you can stitch things together. But hardware is something else. I mean, that's really that kind of timeline is longer, but we definitely are looking into that as well, because we think very strongly actually that this is especially if you think about young people in schools, how they are currently being creative, or how they are, let's say, learning music. It's pretty old-fashioned. You have like a music lesson. You play the guitar, you play the piano, you take drumming lessons or whatever, but you don't really have
drumming lesson at school. Yeah, that's I mean, it's very old-fashioned, and every kid, they see what's out there. They see DJs, they see finger drummers, controllerists. Well, they don't see many controllerists, but they see finger drummers, and they see performers doing things with digital equipment. That the curriculum in general, the curriculum, not just in arts, but in everything, has been hopelessly behind the real world. Just the fact that kids don't learn in school, hey, this is a smartphone, by the way. This is a device in your pocket that can access the entire collective knowledge of mankind. Here's how you use it. There's no such thing I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So this all ties into that.
Absolutely.
It doesn't represent the contemporary music scene at all,
Not at all.
That's very problem. I have one specific question in terms of visual live performance. So this as in forms of art, because I compare it a little bit with turntablism, and I mean, you're really experienced with the whole turntablism scene due to Saber Music Festival, IDA, and stuff like that. I would like to know, is there a trend, or are there already some figures within the scene who are using some certain gestures from the turntablism community to play with visuals? You know what I mean? Because everything it's programmed, everything is automated and things like that. But it would be great to get this. Not okay. Then let me know.
Okay, so here's the thing: if you ever watch a VJ or an LJ really work, like a good one.
No, not good. No,
okay, well, and literally anybody with a big DMX console. If they're the light operator at a festival or in a club, if they're good, which they often are, they will look at the DJ, listen to what the DJ is doing or the artist on stage, and they will actually perform. It's just that, they will totally. Like, it's basically controllerism, but for lights. And for me, I don't know if you, there is I have a friend, DJ 69 Beats, and he was here for a live stream where he won one of those Serato things, Serato / DJ City, and he just asked me, hey, can I stream from your place because you got all these visuals? And we actually, I haven't heard his set before, so I basically took all this stuff is on YouTube, on his YouTube. Maybe we can post that in the comments when this goes live.
Sure.
It's basically, he was playing a 1 hour set for that competition, and I was on the other side of this console with my machine a jam, and I was basically performing the visuals live all the time, just reacting to what he was doing. So, of course, there was no turntablism in it, but just in terms of just controllerism, it's by no means is it something where you just push a button and things, of course we do that, but we can do that in response to what's happening in the music. All these things like controlling just watch one of my live streams. Like all these things that I'm doing them as part of a performance. So it's totally something that that is relevant to visual arts. Absolutely, yes. So like for me, just leveraging this, I mean, this is nothing. This is literally just controlling a video loop. But imagine how much you can do with it if you have.
And that's the question. Yeah. That's the question. How far can you bring that? Because right now, when I just compare it in terms of the gestures and stuff like that, it's really baby footsteps. Really some simple stuff. You're pushing a button, you're moving forward and backward. But when you really compare it to a performance from a professional musician who plays, I don't know, some 1/16, then some triplets, exactly on the 1 beat, and then on the 1/4 after the 2 beat and stuff like that. Do you think you can bring visual performance to a point like that with really an output where you say, oh man, that's amazing, and this thing has the human touch inside? You can see the human touch based on the performance. That will be interesting.
It's absolutely yes. So and imagine, so this right here is just like a variable, right? I can have any number of those, and they can scale differently. They can react differently to one single motion. I can have, it's basically like a macro control for many things. The only thing with that is that you have to build your own control scheme for your specific visual setup. It's like MIDI mapping. When you make a controllerist routine, you make your own mapping. It's the same with visuals. Everything is mappable in software like Resolume, Notch, Touch Designer. You can control everything with Unreal Engine. I once built a remote control using the F1 for a mixed reality TV production in Unreal Engine, just on this controller. So you can do so basically it was just for the director to like move the virtual camera around and stuff like that. Very simple stuff. It's all possible, but it requires a lot of work, and there is no cookie cutter preset thing because everyone's VJ rig is different. So we can definitely work out some basic 3-knob thing that you can then maybe tie to when you tailor make it for specific software, and just say, okay, we have a certain effect in Resolume, and we change the parameters of this or the parameters of that with a variable, or with just tracking the pitch of that's coming out of the controller. We can do all these things. The thing is that you usually don't have a combination of both in one artist. It's a rare thing. Because you have to. Yeah, I know. I mean, the more presets we make and we share with people, tied with demo footage, I mean, I can do insane things, but then give it to, I don't know, Vect. Give it to Vect and just let him go wild for 3 weeks. He's going to have a turntablism routine with visuals on top of that, or just anybody who can really scratch. But you have to make it possible for them to do it, because generative visuals, dude, that's not going to run on an entry-level MacBook. It may run on one of the new ones, but it's really something that you want to have a dedicated beefy GPU for, like a powerful gaming laptop. Or you have to have 2 people. I imagine like a tandem of artists where you have a DJ and a VJ performing together. The technology and the app that you guys are building and whatever we develop in the future is going to make this interfacing easier. Yeah, think about it. We already have the capability to listen to audio from one mixer on 2 computers. We have the ability that this particular mixer has a MIDI bridge, so I can push a button on one computer and I have things happen on 2 computers, or whatever. Or I can push a fader and on this mixer, and we have the tech. We just really need to make the interfacing even easier so that people actually explore it. Because, you know, if you make a team routine, it's what? Like a world championship team routine? 6 months work? Easy.
Yeah.
Try to expand that's 6 minutes, and then expand that to the length of a set, and then add visuals on top of that. It's not easy.
Developing the whole package is very tough. Yeah. I think of, have you heard of Cascoby, the guy who developed light shows for launch pads and grid pad controllers? So, for instance, your Ableton sort of pushes on either side.
I like those videos where you see him just triggering stuff, and there's they're
very flashy light shows. So, but effectively, you know, unfortunately, he doesn't seem like he's actually triggering the sounds. He's developed very complex light shows that are triggered by hand, but he's not triggering the sounds. He's not able to combine both worlds together.
That's where I have the beef with it, because I was always looking at those videos like, I can see what you're doing. You're hitting that button without changing anything. You're hitting that button 3 times and the music continues. That's not, you're just controlling the lights. But you're going to see it, but the 500,000 people that are going to watch it are going to think, oh my God, this is a wizard. He's not. He's a wizard of the lights. But there's not much happening on the audio end of things. So I mean, it's possible to do these things, but it requires an insane amount of coding. Insane. But again, it's possible, but I think at a certain point, it's also on the industry to provide us better interfaces to do it.
Right.
By just getting the I'm not sure if I can do that on the fly while we talk. Can I do that on the fly? Nah, it's going to be too complicated. But basically, maybe I can. So basically, just getting this thing to light up to music it's like the rack for that. I wish I could just show you the rack, but I have no easy way to do that right now. But just building this, adapting it from something that I found online years ago to even work in Ableton Live 11. This is Live 10. It took me hours just to understand the complexity of the rack that I needed to get a heart shape on the push, and then to go through the velocities to have the right color changes and stuff. Jesus.
Actually, mapping out the colors as well, because they don't go up in a logical fashion.
It's like a rack with key zones. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't break it down for the life of me, to be honest. And it's just doing that takes a crazy amount of time.
But this is a great example of how sort of normal users are never capable to pull this off, because it's.
But I keep saying that they can. They just need to commit and do the research. Yeah. Because I'm not smarter. I'm not smarter than anyone. I'm just a nerd. I just want to know this, and then I'm not going to go to sleep. It's going to be 5 a.m. But I'm going to figure this shit out. You believe that?
Yeah, but that's
how I work.
But that's exactly. I mean, and that's fine, right? I also have a lot of that myself, but coming back to the instant gratification, I think most users, I mean, they don't read the manual. They see something, they ask, "How can I do that?" And you say, "This is how you do it," and they still don't get it, and you need to spoon feed them, but they still want it. And even some people, they feel entitled, like, why can't you tell me how it works?
I can, and I will, but you're gonna clock out. That's the problem. That's the issue, and really, like, that's one of the things that I love about sample music festivals so much, is that we get people together in a setting where you often have people who aren't as proficient, and then they watch people like Nick do his thing, and then they learn, they get infected with it. But this needs to happen on a bigger scale. We need to do more of that, and it just like not being able to do live events for such a long time has been a nightmare. Now let's see if I can do this on the fly. Let's see. Let's go for. I'm not going to play any music because we're going to get copyright struck. But let's just see if I can even get anything out of it. Yeah.
There you go.
So that's basically. That's just your basic heart shape that responds to the amplitude. But then you can. What is that? Let's just randomize the colors on it. So that's there's an arpeggiator that just randomizes the colors on it. And then if I have there's also a whole Ableton Live construct running on my visual machine that will enable people, for example, to trigger like glitter hearts on top of that from Twitch chat. And these things, man, it's if you start explaining to people, I have infected a few people on Twitch with the VJ virus. They're kind of started playing. There's a few, specifically Darren from Isotonic, like that guy went from, I'm going to set up 20 cameras and do insane things, to last week he just goes, you know what, I built something in Unreal Engine and I'm going to tie that into it. I'm like, what? Even I'm sitting like, what? So it's so cool, because when you hit the right person with your idea or with something you did, they're going to take that, and if they're smart, then they'll come back with something epic where you're going to go like, how did you do that? And it's amazing. But I want that to happen to more people. I just want so many people to just freak out and go like, I'm going to hack this.
Sure.
I think those are really good words to, I guess, end this also almost. We're over an hour in. We don't want it to be a super long video. But I think there's actually a lot of reasons probably to follow this up also in the future, kind of video. We can maybe do some more examples, and we'll get you the Scratch Visualizer. Maybe do some kind of video with some visuals down behind you, something with that as well.
I'm gonna, if there is a way for you to, that's my wish list thing that I'm going to attach to the end of the video. If you facilitate a way for me to get the data out of Scratch in a way where I can, say, make multiple mappings just based on the position, that's going to put Miss Pinky to shame, because in Miss Pinky I'm super limited. That's why I'm only doing these basic things. But like digital syntabilism isn't very far away from me. So I will absolutely have a thing where I play a melody on a pad and then have the modulation happening on here alongside video. It's just a matter of time. So if I just let me play, and let's get together and talk about this more and see if we can push it together.
Definitely.
Awesome. So thank you very much for the opportunity to just nerd out for an hour.
Thank you so much for your time. And
thanks very much for your time. And we'll put all the links below, I guess, to your channel and stuff. And let's definitely keep in touch, and have a nice rest of your day.
Great. Have a nice
Cheers, guys.
Cool. Thanks. Bye-bye.